This week on Vaticano, get the latest updates on the situation of the Catholic Church in China. Hear the voice of the Holy See at the United Nations in Geneva. And meet the Dominican monk who has saved thousands of ancient manuscripts in Iraq. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. Before the Angelus prayer on Sunday, July the 23rd, the Holy Father reflected on the Gospel of Matthew, on a passage where Jesus speaks about the kingdom of God in a parable. Pope Francis chose to explain the parable of the weeds and the grain. On the one hand, we have the good farmer, master of his field, who represents God, and who spreads the good seed for wheat to grow. On the other hand, we have the enemy, who represents Satan, and who spreads bad seeds so that weeds will grow among the wheat.
With this image, Jesus tells us that in this world, good and evil are totally entwined, and that it's impossible to separate them and weed out all the evil. Only God can do this, and He will do it in the final judgment.
Pope Francis said that Christians must learn to discern between good and evil. To do so, they should make use of attitudes which, at first sight, might seem contrary to one another: decision and patience.
The decision is to want to be the good seed. We all want this with all our strength, and hence distancing ourselves from the evil one and his seductions. Patience means to prefer a church that is leaven in the dough, who does not fear soiling her hands washing the clothes of her children, rather than a church of pure ones that pretends to judge before the time who is and who is not in the kingdom of God.
The Holy Father said that both of these attitudes are necessary. No one is perfect, but we're all sinners who have been redeemed by Jesus and His sacrifice on the cross. After the Angelus prayer, the Pope made an appeal for peace in the Holy Land.
I follow with trepidation the grave tensions and violence of these days in Jerusalem. I feel the need to express a heartfelt appeal to moderation and to dialogue. I invite you all to join me in prayer that the Lord may inspire all with the resolutions of reconciliation and peace.
For the past 7 years, the organization Caritas in Veritate International has traveled to China and has helped to lead the theological forum for the Chinese Catholic Bishops' Conference. We met up with Monsignor Anthony Figueiredo, a member of this organization, a few days before this year's theological forum, which took place from July the 13th through July the 20th in Fuzhou.
Well, each year I've been going to mainland China. There's a group of 3 of us. This is our 7th year that we have been to China on the invitation specifically of the bishops there. They want us to go there really as one of the motivations, one of the means to build bridges, as Pope Francis asks us to do.
Caritas in Veritate International is a federation of Catholic institutions dedicated to bringing charity and truth to all people in the world.
You know, we think of China really as a country of Buddhism, of Taoism, historically, but in recent years there's been a great growth of Christianity, mainly the evangelical churches. So we can say there's about 100 million Christians in China. Catholics exist, they're growing at a much smaller rate. So there's about 6 million official Catholics belonging to the Chinese Patriotic Association, which swears loyalty to the government, and about the same number who belong to the so-called underground church, so about 12 million.
This division of the Catholic Church in China prevents any further growth and even sows discord among the faithful themselves. In spite of this, Father Anthony has recently seen significant changes inside the Church in China.
Well, it is certainly the wish of Jesus Christ that we all be one. He prayed for that at the Last Supper, and so disunity is always a scandal It's a scandal to those who do not believe. And certainly the underground church coming together with the official church, there are many things already happening. We're surprised when we go there that in our meetings we're not simply meeting with members of the official church, but also the underground church. I think there's so much that can be done. There's a thirst to hear the Christian message. There's a thirst for Jesus Christ. And certainly the evangelization efforts of the Roman Catholic Church can be certainly helped by this unity. I think also about the organization of dioceses. They're not organized and they need help simply in very simple matters. For example, setting up a marriage tribunal in the different dioceses. Imagine if we got Catholics to unite in formation and providing that formation to one church, our evangelization efforts would be much greater.
The main reason the group goes to China every year is to keep in contact with the Chinese bishops, hear the needs of the church, and answer the questions and requests.
I want to emphasize the Chinese wish that, they desire us to help them. I think the difficulties are perhaps at higher levels in the Chinese government, perhaps even here at Rome. There are those who are fearful of these bridges being built because of the persecution of Catholics, which certainly does continue to this day. So, in the words of Cardinal Parolin, the Secretary of State, we wish the good of Chinese Catholics, both underground and the official church. We wish the good of Chinese society, and we wish the good of the whole of society, particularly as we look for peace. Unity can only help those three different levels.
Thanks for watching. In a few moments, we'll bring you an inside look at the papal mission to the United Nations. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
The world's most controversial conflict is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Sadly enough, in all these years, the parties were not able to reach a solution to end it. It seems that the tunes of political speeches and United Nations talks do not bring peace to the region.
I have a million nightingales on the branches of my heart.
On July 12th, the YMCA Jerusalem Chorus filled the halls of the UN Geneva with music, tunes for peace.
I think arts and culture plays an extremely important role in terms of building peace, building specifically a sense of community, that music is a very strong tool to bring people together even across boundaries of difference if used properly.
Their mission is to empower youth in Jerusalem to become leaders in their communities and inspire singers and listeners around the world to work for peace.
People sing together and discover each other. The situation in Jerusalem between Israelis and Palestinians is that we are so far apart that when we meet each other, we need to re-understand what we think about the other side and even about us, about our own side.
Musically, the chorus seeks to reflect the values of equality and inclusiveness and to manifest the concept of beauty in diversity.
And it feels really good to be in the choir because I didn't know any Jewish friends or any of them, so it was really nice to know their perception of us and how do they feel for Arabs, and as we're part of their community and they're also part of our community, so we need to know them more and to know them better. So it was kind of a way to know the other part of Jerusalem.
I'm Palestinian. When I'm talking with Jewish, this cannot be a problem for me and for another people, but it's comfortable because you know each other. When you're talking, laughing, you make a lot of things, because that feel good in choir.
The chorus meets even through wars and cycles of violence. they are a force for peace, like Pope Francis, who urged Israel and the Palestinians to resume peace talks, saying no conflict can become a habit impossible to break. Perhaps the music of the YMCA Jerusalem Chorus is a prayer to break that habit.
Of course, I think music has power that people sometimes aren't even aware of, because it can create a universal language. Some of us here, we don't speak the same languages. I don't completely speak Arabic, some people don't speak Hebrew or English, but we're able to communicate through the music. And I think there already has been music that has helped open people's minds and see things from a different perspective.
Their music is all about the relationship between freedom and singing. Because by singing, we can find freedom.
There's another way. We can change things and make them better. And here's an example of how.
We want migrants to be able to move in a safe, orderly, and dignified way. And we want governments to be able to manage migration much more humanely and responsibly than in the past.
I often find myself wondering, why them and not me? I myself was born in a family of migrants. My father, my grandparents, like many other Italians, left for Argentina and met the fate of those who are left with nothing. I could have very well ended up among today's discarded people. And that's why I always ask myself deep in my heart, why them and not me? On July 18th and 19th at the UN Geneva, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, offered this workshop entitled International Dialogue on Migration 2017, a platform to discuss and analyze migrants' vulnerabilities and capacities. During one of the panels, the Holy See took the floor and stressed that there is a need in host countries for the integration of migrants.
It is a two-way process, rooted essentially in the joint recognition of the other's cultural richness.
Actor and UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador Orlando Bloom visited the borders of Greece and Serbia.
I feel very privileged to have really had the chance to see a lot of what's been unfolding here, and I'm quite shocked and I'm quite disturbed, and they're in desperate need of our help, of our assistance.
Pope Francis called migration the human face of globalization.
A lot more could be done. And that's why I think the Order of Malta wants to reaffirm and reinforce its commitment on behalf of migrants, and especially on behalf of victims of human trafficking.
What the Catholic Church certainly can do is to promote the public perception of migration, the phenomenon of migration. We have to stay behind, let's say, 4 rules of the Catholic Church. First is to welcome. Second thing would be to promote. Third thing would be protect. And the last thing would be to integrate, which does not mean assimilate, but to make them our brothers.
The Holy See brought attention to an often overlooked reality, the important relationship between a migrant and his or her family.
The family dimension needs to be taken into account, thus making migration a more positive experience for everybody. In fact, the family truly is foundation upon which a stable society, culture, and economic situation can flourish, and it's central in achieving Sustainable Development Goals to establishing peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development.
IKEA's largest Chinese supplier of paper pallets reunites migrant workers from different provinces of the country with their children by providing housing for them. Even though these are not workers from foreign countries, this is a role model of integration of migrant workers' families. The Holy Father encouraged a culture of encounter as the only culture capable of building a better, more just and fraternal world.
If you have not only one perspective but another one, all of a sudden you discover that actually the world is much more interesting when you have more than one perspective.
The overall objective of this workshop was to address all aspects of migrants in vulnerable situations and challenges involved, and in Pope Francis' words, to resist attempts to impose uniformity and instead embrace diversity.
I would say a very simple word. Don't get used to the sufferings of your neighbor. Look around. When you see somebody suffering, you see this migrant, be attentive to him. This is our mission. This is our gospel.
Thanks for watching. Stick around for more on Vaticano. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano. Iraq, the land of the Garden of Eden, the birthplace of writing, and the ancient cradle of human civilization. This land has been for a long time under the constant threat of war and destruction. Since 2003, historical sites, libraries, and entire villages and cities have been exposed to inhuman violence.
Iraq on the verge of total collapse as terrorists capture city after city.
They're a Sunni Muslim jihadist group formed a year ago.
This Dominican monk decided to resist the violence by preserving history and culture. Since 1990, Father Mikhail Najib has been working on a project to digitalize precious ancient manuscripts. His study has become a digital center called the CNMO, the Center for the Digitization of Oriental Manuscripts. The center was located in Mosul until ISIS invaded the city in 2014.
Patrimoine écrit, notamment les manuscrits.
This history with the archives, we brought them out of Mosul little by little. This was in 2007, 2008, all the way up to 2009. And ISIS arrived in June 2014, unified around the black and white flag and a slogan declaring itself the Islamic State, with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who declared his institution in the mosque right in front of my church.
People had already been living in a state of anarchy since the war back in 2001, so many of them believed that ISIS might finally bring peace and stability to the region.
The population was in agreement with them at first. They immediately declared, "You, the Christians, do not be afraid. We will protect you. We will not harm you. So stay, don't go." Then, not even 1 month later, a declaration comes from the mosques of Mosul stating, "You, the Christians, the infidels, the impious, you have an ultimatum of 24 hours, and you must choose to either leave, convert, or die."
And the decision came. The Christians left. Father Mikhail took his car, filled it with ancient manuscripts, and together with his brothers and sisters of faith, fled to the city of Erbil under Kurdish control.
In reality, I did not save all this history just because I am a Christian. I saved this because I am a human being, and everything that is human interests me, like the lives of other human beings. And a human being becomes much more valuable when he has roots.
Not only does ISIS want to create a mono-religious state, but it also wants to erase everything that came before it, and that doesn't literally agree with Sharia.
And today ISIS is trying to kill humans by removing their history. It is a form of genocide. When they want to destroy an entire population. What we are trying to do is an operation that is anti-ISIS to educate people and prepare a generation that is cultivated, a generation that has an open mind and is pacifist towards the entire world.
For the past 3 years, Father Mikhail Najib has been traveling around the world showing some of these saved artifacts. And in the middle of June, he came to Rome.
In fact, this exhibition which we have here in Rome is just a small fragment of what we have in Iraq with respect to manuscripts and archives and materials and photos, because we have also the largest collection of photos back in Iraq.
The exhibition was set up in the Dominican monastery next to the Church of Santa Maria sopra Minerva in the center of Rome.
These documents, many of them go back to the 10th, the 11th, the 12th century in Aramaic, which is the language of Jesus Christ and is still our mother tongue to this day. But we also have Arabic, Syriac, Armenian, and Hebrew, and many other languages, Ottoman, Persian. All of this makes up our collection and heritage, not only Christian, but also in international communion for the whole of humanity.
The texts on these ancient manuscripts cover more than 25 different subjects: theology, philosophy, astronomy, medicine, history, and many others.
And so this entire collection presents a small selection to say to the world, here we are, here are our roots. You need to help us. You need to help us protect ourselves. We do not have the right, as an international community, to sell arms to kill one another, and at the same time not promote the culture and the rights of men.
Vi annuncio con gioia che la prossima giornata mondiale della gioventù, dopo le due a livello diocesano, sarà nel 2019 a Panama.
Almost a year has passed since World Youth Day 2016 in Krakow, Poland. During this time, the organizers of the next World Youth Day, which will be held in Panama in 2019, have prepared the logo and the hymn of the event. The logo is based on the shape of a heart. On the right, it displays a silhouette of Mary. Above Mary's head, there are 5 white dots. They represent her crown, and all the pilgrims who will travel from 5 continents. There's a blue line that flows through Mary. This is the image of the Panama Canal. It's also a symbol of the idea that the way to Jesus is through Mary. At the top of the logo is a stylized M. This suggests the name of the Mother of God, Mary, and it also represents the site of the event, the Isthmus of Panama. The symbol of World Youth Day, the Pilgrim Cross, is depicted in red on the left. The logo was designed by a 20-year-old Panamanian architecture student, Amber Calvo. The new World Youth Day anthem reflects the Marian theme of the upcoming event. The name of the song is taken from a passage of the Gospel of Luke. Let it be done to me according to your word. It begins with the words, "We are pilgrims who come here today from continents and cities. We want to be missionaries of the Lord to carry His word and message."
Misioneros del Señor, llevar su palabra y su mensaje.
The author of the anthem is Abdiel Jimenez, a catechist and psalmist from Panama City.
Ante la llamada de tu proyecto,
El cielo se goza y canta de alegría, toda la tierra alaba tus portentos. He aquí la sierva del Señor, hágase en mí según tu palabra. He aquí la sierva del Señor.
World Youth Day Panama will take place in January 2019. Thanks for watching Vaticano. Join us next week for another edition.